Hey guys, welcome back to another episode. Today we will be making recipe number 4, pumpkin tart. I am so excited. This falls right into my wheelhouse. I love to bake and I'm so excited that we actually get to do one. Man, when we drew this recipe, I told Charlie, I said, if this recipe has cilantro in it, I'm gonna throw the cookbook. I needed a break, okay? If you guys want to see how we chose this recipe, there's a link to the video right here. So back in the day when I first started baking, pie is where I really wanted to focus my attention. So I have been baking pie from the beginning. And when I reread the recipe, it has an orange honey whipped cream to go on top. I mean, yes, please. I had to get creme fraiche, which WTF is creme fraiche? Like, I had no idea. Like, seriously, I texted my aunt because she knows all of the things about all the bougie ingredients. And she said, well, it's like sour cream with a higher fat content and thicker and not as sour. And I was kind of afraid I wouldn't be able to find it anywhere. But my mother, the saint, went down to Whole Foods in Fayetteville a few days ago and she said, do you guys need anything? And I said, creme fraiche, because I knew that the bougiest of the bougie stores would have this bougie ingredient that we would need. All right, guys, I am so excited. Let's get started. So we got to make the pie crust first. It takes 3 tablespoons of water, which I just went ahead and mixed together. All right, so it takes 2 teaspoons of cornstarch. Do a little whisk. And now I heat it up in the microwave for like 30 to 40 seconds and it'll get solidified, I guess. Ooh, yeah. That's kind of cool. Getting chunky. Woo! That's hot! Look. How cool is that? I did not know that was a thing. So this goes in the freezer for 10 minutes. All right, so it's been 10 minutes and I'm getting the cornstarch out of the freezer. Okay, so it says once it's chilled in a food processor, combine the flour, sugar, and salt. And I am a huge proponent of weighing the ingredients, and luckily this recipe has like any of the dry ingredients have grams, which is amazing. 159 grams of flour in there, 2 teaspoons of sugar, 2, and a 1/4 teaspoon of salt. Because it doesn't call for much salt because this recipe calls for salted butter. It says add the chilled cornstarch mixture. That's not very sexy, is it? Until uniformly ground, about 5 pulses. 10 tablespoons of salted butter. Oh, this butter is not very cold. I should have gotten butter straight out of the fridge. Oopsie. PSA. Always use really cold butter when you make pie crust. Hopefully we won't be screwed because we're chilling it again. 2 tablespoons of sour cream. That's it. Heaping one. So we process it until it becomes clumped around the blade. All right. Ooh, it's got a really interesting texture. It's like a little cakey feeling. It seems a little soft. I don't know. I'm concerned. It needs to be in a 4-inch disc. So what I do is I just kind of like fold over it into, and then just kind of like form it inside the plastic wrap. So now we fridge it for an hour. I'm just gonna go ahead and put that in there and we'll see you in an hour. All right, guys. God. We did it. Whoopsie. It's okay. No, have no fear. This is the bad one. So as I am washing the food processor, I realized, oh, now I know why that the crust was so cake-like. It's because the butter was soft.
I'm concerned.
And whenever you make pie crust, whenever the butter is really supposed to be really hard, and so it gets like kind of like little beads of butter throughout, and then it puffs up and becomes super flaky. Well, I did not do that with the first one. PSA. Always use really cold butter when you make pie crust. And so, while we were on break, I made another one. Our next steps are we roll out the dough, you put it in the tart pan, and then you freeze it for 15 minutes, and then we're gonna bake it. So we flour the work surface. So what I do is I just kind of like lift and flip every so often until I can't anymore, because sometimes it can be very difficult to get the pie crust unstuck from the counter if you just like roll it all out in one fell swoop. And it's a good way to be able to check if you're getting any like weak spots in the crust. So it needs to be 12 inches. That should be good. Okay, so we take our tart pan, I put it over here, and then you roll the pie crust over the rolling pin loosely. And then we're gonna put it in here. You wanna like push it into the corner of the tart pan, but you don't wanna rip your crust. So just do it really gently. So what I'm gonna do is I'm just gonna take the rolling pin to cut off all that excess. I'm just gonna take the rolling pin and push it across the top. A really good trick here to make sure you're really filled in is to take just an extra piece of dough that you have lying around, and you can kind of like flatten the outside so that it's all even. This goes into the freezer for 15 minutes. See you then. All right, so it's been 15 minutes. I gotta get the pie crust out of the freezer. It's like solid. The butter has solidified. So we are going to blind bake this. These are my high-tech pie weights here. Some red beans that Charlie had in his cupboard for like 4 years or something. I've never invested in professional like grade pie weights. They're really expensive. In the cookbook, he literally says use beans and rice. I don't know if I need to say this, but they need to be raw beans and raw rice. So it says it needs to be 3/4 of the way full, and we are there. And put it on a rimmed baking sheet and put it in the oven for 12 minutes in one direction and then 12 minutes in the other direction. So while the pastry is in the oven, we are going to make the filling. I need a can of pumpkin, and make sure that you do not use the pumpkin pie filling. You want to just get pumpkin. I need 149 grams of dark brown sugar. Perfect. This induction cooktop it's amazing. You definitely want the sugar to be like melty and stuff. It says thickened and dark. I don't know. It said it should leave a film on the pan. I think what it is that we're trying to cook some of that rawness out of the pumpkin, because when you make a pumpkin pie, you cook it for like almost an hour, and this one doesn't cook but for like 30 minutes. So I think we're just trying to get some of that like raw pumpkin flavor out of it. It's left a film. It's left a film. Turn the pan around. And we put that back on, and I put a 1/4 cup of bourbon in there. I probably should have pre-opened this. Perfect. Quarter cup. All right. Booze. Oh. Oh man. That is a smell. Yeah, so it says like scrape up any browned bits. Oh god, that smell is so bad. Well, we're definitely cooking the alcohol out of it because I'm breathing it into my mouth. In a food processor, combine the pumpkin mixture and the creme fraiche and process until smooth. Creme fraiche. It's kind of like butter and sour cream mixed together. I'm not angry about it. This is processed together. I think we're smooth. I can't really smell the bourbon anymore, so that's nice. See how hot it is. It seems good. We have to put eggs in there, and I just get concerned about that because eggs will cook very quickly if you do that. All right, so then you add the eggs and the salt. 1/4 teaspoon of salt. Looks pretty smooth to me. It smells really good. So now I have to take the pie weights out. Oh, look how small it got. I'm concerned. That's not gonna work. Fuck. I'm gonna have to remake this. I'm just gonna take the rolling pin and push it across the top. I never, ever blind bake things. Like, I just don't ever do it. And maybe this is why. Because then you have to start all over. And I'll have to clean the food processor for the 4th time today. We'll be back shortly. All right, guys, welcome back. It's the next day. I realized I've seen on the Great British Baking Show and on a couple other things where they usually leave like a little bit of overhang when they blind bake. That way it doesn't shrink down into the tart pan. So last night I went ahead and I pre-made 2 more pie doughs just in case. So we are going to re-blind bake this today, and then hopefully, fingers crossed, we will have a pumpkin tart by the end of the day today. It's definitely nice and chilled. Ugh. I also made it a little bit thicker today because I'm afraid that it was a little too thin yesterday. Just trim it. Back into the freezer it goes for 15 minutes. Man, I gotta tell you, I was defeated yesterday after that. This is what you get for being too confident. I'm gonna get the tart out of the freezer. This time, I'm also gonna try to be better about like really getting the foil all the way to the edges. Because last time, I was a little loosey-goosey about that. Into the oven we go. All right, Alexa, set a timer for 7 minutes.
7 minutes, starting now.
All right, so it's got a little bit of a crack in it, and I'm thinking that we're probably gonna have some leakage there. It will look homemade. Let's put it back in the oven. It goes back in for 30 to 35 minutes. So while that's in the oven, we're gonna go ahead and make the whipped cream. This recipe also came with a whipped cream. It's a honey orange whipped cream, and oh my gosh, that sounds amazing. So we had to bust out the KitchenAid. 1.5 cups of heavy cream, 3 tablespoons of honey, a 1/2 teaspoon of orange zest. Always start it slowly and then build it up to the speed you want it, or you will have heavy cream all over yourself. All right, so when we reach this point, I like to check it. Go again. All right. So right when we're about to be at the consistency that I like, I make sure to give it a little stir and scrape, just because sometimes that stuff at the bottom doesn't really have the right consistency yet, and that way it'll be uniform. All right, it's perfect. All right, I'm gonna check on it. I think it's good. We're gonna let it cool. We have to let it cool for 30 minutes and then we're gonna try it. I'm so excited. So it has cooled, and now I'm going to attempt to take the outer part off of the tart. It worked. It looks a little raw. It could be prettier, but it's a tart. We did it. Let's cut into it. Ooh. All right. I'm gonna be honest. I've definitely made prettier things in my life, but let's try it. It seems like a little wiggly. It has a good flavor. We have a soggy bottom. Oh well. I'm still gonna eat it. You get the orange, and you get like a little bit of spice kind of from the bourbon. It's just like a little tinge there. The whipped cream, oh my gosh, it's the best part. That honey, using honey to sweeten it, man, I would never thought of that. All right, guys, we did it. Recipe number 4 is done. Okay, so we had our first mildishly large disaster. The crust. We struggled a little bit. The flavors are amazing. I mean, seriously, pumpkin and orange and honey and all of that just really goes together. So I'm going to be completely honest with you here. When I bake things, rarely ever do I get a success on the first try. I usually have to work at it a couple times. And honestly, if I was going to be making that for friends or family, I would be going out and buying all new ingredients and I'd be making it again. Problem is here, I didn't blind bake the pastry long enough. I should have thought about that because it's such a wet filling that it's going to make the pastry wet. I guess I rushed a little bit and didn't really think it through. But all in all, it turned out really well. The pastry was on the outside where I tried it, where it was crispy and brown. So good. Who would have thought to put sour cream in a pastry dough? I mean, that's just really interesting. And you know, while it didn't go 100% great, we still got a product at the end that Charlie and I both liked to eat. It was really good. All right, guys, thank you so much for liking, commenting, and subscribing. I will see you next week when we select our 5th recipe.
Alright guys, forgive my no makeup. So, I'm laying in bed and I'm realizing, oh my gosh, I was supposed to bake the tart for 12 minutes on each side instead of 7 minutes on each side.
Alexa, set a timer for 7 minutes.
This has been eating away at me because I just couldn't fathom what I had done so wrong. I'm not good at failing. I was so confident in this, and maybe that's my problem, is I went in too confidently and I just didn't give it 100% heart. So I'm going to remake it. Yep. I've talked to Charlie and I think we're going to do just like a sped up version. So hopefully it turns out okay. And I'll see you after.
All right, guys. So we did it. We fixed it. Yes. I made the tart. I finished it. And then I took it to the cabin to put it to the real test and see what my family thought. And honestly, the consensus was that it was just okay. And you know what? That's fine. Like, it's exciting to try new things and see what we're going to like and what we're not going to like. And there are going to be things that just don't work out. And this was one of them. So I definitely won't be changing my pumpkin pie recipe to this tart recipe for Thanksgiving. But that's all right. Join us next week when we select the next recipe. See you then.